Hi, my name is Melanie Powell. I'm one of the economists at the University of Derby Business School, and I'm really pleased to be able to introduce you to our visiting professor of banking and financial economics, Trevor Williams. Trevor is also the chief economist at Lloyds Commercial, and he's a member of the UK's Shadow Monetary Policy Committee. He writes books on trade economics, and he's written so many articles I can't even count them anymore. And he travels all over the world talking to businesses, organisations and banks and professional people about global finance and global macroeconomic issues. So today I'm going to ask you a few questions about the Brexit issue, if that's okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay, so what do you think are the most likely gains and losses in the shorter and the longer term from Brexit for the UK?
Since we're going to leave, let's look at some gains first of all, which are well documented by the Brexiteers as flexibility, ability to set laws that suit UK conditions, as it's put, the ability to be able to strike trade deals with whatever country we like, rather than doing it through the EU, which is assumed to be faster and quicker and more flexible. And to decide who we want to let into the country and who we don't want to let into the country. Those are the gains. The negatives, of course, are many, and they range from the fact that we are a huge trading nation, and one of the biggest trading blocs in the world is the EU. And so leaving it means that we're leaving one of the richest areas for financial services, which is one of our key exports, and other business services, which is another one of our key exports. And it could be argued that perhaps we've lost flexibility and bargaining power, because in negotiating with countries as large as, say, China or India, with populations which are 7 times bigger than the UK's, I would have thought we're at somewhat of a disadvantage in opening trade deals. And of course the fact that being part of a bigger bloc means that you effectively can punch above your weight in global trade negotiations and talks and influence. So those are some of the positives, those are some of the negatives.
And on balance, do you have any view about, for the short term, over the next 2 years of negotiation, which of those will pan out?
I mean, I think
stronger?
it'll be a difficult couple of years, because trade deals are very difficult. Actually, let's get the chronology right. We won't be doing a trade deal in the next 2 years. What we're doing is the divorce talks. We're discussing how and on what terms we will leave the customs union and how we will leave the single market. Those are going to be tortuous negotiations. And then there'll be a discussion around the trade deals. It may well be that that'll begin before the 2 years are up, if we can strike a deal on leaving before 2 years. I doubt whether we'll do that within 2 years, and I can't think of a trade deal that's taken less than 5 to 10 years to strike. So I think we're a long way away from trade deals with the EU. And of course we can't do trade deals with anyone else until we've left the EU, because the EU rules state quite clearly that we're not allowed to do trade deal with others until we've left. So your question was, how will some of the advantages and disadvantages pan out over the next couple of years? I think we'll be in a state of flux, there'll be lots of uncertainty. I think the short run is potentially more damaging than the longer run. In the longer run, I think that we will be able to do arrangements with others, but I prefer multilateral deals to bilateral deals, because multilateral deals clearly pull in more countries. And so my view is that it'd be difficult to say what would have happened had we not left, because that's a counterfactual, we won't know. I think that the UK will clearly continue to grow because it has some distinct national advantages: flexibility, openness to trade, low regulation, a welcoming environment for businesses, and those things won't change. But at the margin, I suspect that our potential growth rate may be rather less than it otherwise would be.
And the foreign direct investment, that's always been a really big part of the flow into the UK. Do you think that will maintain over the next couple of years?
I suspect it will. I think that it isn't just about access to Europe, but the way that we are in terms of welcoming to ideas and people and so on. Now, to the extent that that changes, then that would undermine those inward flows. But I suspect things won't change as much as many who voted to leave think they will, because otherwise the damage to the UK will be greater. The paradox is this, actually. The less the UK acts like it wants a hard Brexit, the better it is for its economic outcome.
Why?
Well, because the damaging things will be closing the
okay.
economy down, preventing skills that the UK needs to plug gaps that it's got. Openness to ideas and people does mean that you allow capital in, and capital will always lead people, because if you are a foreign investor from China, for example, there's no way they're going to agree to deals which does not allow them to bring in the people that they think they need to get the job done and get it done properly.
Yeah, I agree with that. So to what extent do you think trade deals in general are fundamentally important to the UK's position over the medium term?
Well, we have an incredibly open economy, as you are aware, and many are aware. About 38% of our imports are from overseas, and 33% of our exports clearly they're overseas. So the share of exports and imports in our GDP is 2/3. Obviously, we have a deficit of about 5% with the rest of the world because we import more than we export. But we've been running trade deficits for 20 years, and we've been able to finance it through exports of services and running down our overseas assets. So it's not made the UK poorer. If anything, it's made it nimbler, and we have full employment, so it can't be such a bad thing.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think are going to be the key factors then for the UK? Which out of those do you think are going to be the key factors which will make the difference to our growth potential?
Well, growth in always and everywhere is driven by population growth and productivity. That's what determines long-term growth.
Migration.
And to the extent that migration, i.e. growth in population, has been driven by inward migration, which has been used productively, then that's helped our growth rate. That's one reason why our overall total growth rate is higher than our per head growth rate, because that's a sign of population growth helping to drive our overall growth in living standards. So what's more important? Well, they're both important, is the answer. We've got to focus on productivity. In the absence of a slowdown in immigration means that we'll be less reliant on population growth to drive our long-term growth rate. We're going to have to rely more on productivity to drive our growth rate, in which case the focus is going to be on productivity going forward. That's what's more important now.
But our productivity growth has not been...
Well, it's been
sparkling.
pretty abysmal since 2007. Yeah. So since the financial crisis, our productivity is sort of 17% below where it otherwise would be. And so it's grown by 0.3% per annum in the last 8 years, which is before pre-2007 it's grown at 2% per annum, to give a sense of where we are with it. So it's an abysmal productivity growth rate. And the question is how you address that.
Yeah.
I think there are ways you do address that, but they're difficult politically because they're all long term. And the challenge is unrelated to Brexit.
Yeah.
And they're about raising education skills in the UK. They're about training. They're about apprenticeships. They're about technical skills. They're about providing affordable homes in the areas where people want to live, transport links to where people want to be and where work is, and so on, and building homes to accommodate them at affordable prices and so forth. So there are big challenges around productivity, irrespective of what happens with Brexit.
And government focus is not going to be on that over the next 2 years.
No, we're going to be consumed with leaving and then with striking trade deals.
So it could be a big issue.
So it could be a big issue.
Yeah.
And it is one of the negative factors which will curtail growth. And actually growth is going to slow independent of what happens with Brexit. It's maybe confused with Brexit, but it's because we have full employment, so growth in numbers won't drive the economy along anymore. It's going to have to be productivity gains, and they're going to be difficult to come by unless you remain incredibly flexible and you embrace the changes that are coming along with the new technology. So driverless cars have been passed rules and regulations which allow firms to flourish and so on, and the competitive environment to operate. Those are the things that we need to do to remain competitive in a global economy where we are open and we make our living by trading.
Thank you very much, Trevor.